that whole thing too, right? Where you're talking about getting the ego out of the way. And that's a huge point that you brought up. Getting the ego out of the way. A lot of people are leaders starting their own business. I encounter this all the time. I know my business better than anybody. I don't need advice, right? That's the typical response you'll get from a lot of leaders. And that's something it takes time to work through typically with people. Do you have any tips on that? Do you have any kind of ways that you work through that with different people to get past the ego?
I do. It's a funny thing because you had asked me in an earlier conversation, what makes me different or unique? And what I like to share with people is, first off, as you well know, the hardest person to lead is ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm sure, just like you, I go through a pretty extensive interview process because, again, if they're not willing to do the push-ups, I can give them just like you, we can go in and give them all the great advice or information or ideas or processes that they need to grow their business or turn their business around. But if they're not going to do it, it's not going to help. And one of the things, when I do presentations, I take a glass and I fill it up with Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. Coca-Cola is toxic crap, right? No good for your body, no good for your brain, just jacks everything up.
Yep.
Well, that's us as leaders. And what I like to get people to understand, and what makes me unique, is I like to get rid of the crap before I try and put any good stuff in. Mm-hmm. Because you're just battling, it's like a tug of war. If you got the good and the bad and you teach somebody like integrity or, this compassion like we've been talking about, but they've still got, so there's a bunch of C's that I try and get out of their leadership. One of them is criticism, right? It's often one of the things I share with people that want to really grow their company and their team is, I said, I want you to manage by wandering around. And what I want you to do is I want you to wander around the company. And I did a video on this even after COVID, because you can still do it virtually.
Yes. Yep.
I want you to wander around the company and I want you to look for them doing things right. And I want you to appreciate them and praise them for what they're doing right. Don't wander around your company and say, hey, it's dirty around your work area, or, you left the lights on in the bathroom, or all the crazy stuff that business owners will complain about. What you want to do is let go of the criticizing, right? The other thing is let go of the complaining. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Please. I just had a conversation on this yesterday, so I'm interested to hear what you said.
Well, and so one of the things I share with people is let go of all the complaining, because there's two things that I've realized about complaining. The first one is we don't complain about things we can't control, right? Has anybody ever complained about gravity? Never, because we can't control it. Right. When the plane crashes, the headline doesn't say gravity kills 300, right? It doesn't. Right. And so we don't, and we've taken gravity to the other extreme, and every sport we play uses gravity. Think about it. Golf, baseball, basketball, hockey, football, all needs gravity for us to play, but right. We don't complain about it. So we only complain about the things we have the power to change. Yeah. So shut up and get busy changing it. The other thing is stop complaining to people who can't do anything about it. Everybody knows somebody that they work with that complains about their spouse. And everybody knows somebody that comes home to their spouse and complains about work. Well, the people at home can't fix the people at work, and the people at work can't fix the people at home. Grow a backbone and go tell somebody, honey, I love you, but you're making me crazy with the dishes in the sink every night, right? And find a solution. But at some point, let go of that complaining, because it's not doing any good. And that complaining is also a form of gossip, right? So if you and I were in a work environment and I come over to you and I say, hey, Jared, I don't know who hired this Larry guy, but man, what a chucklehead. He's always late. He's the slowest person in the company. He's the weakest link, man. Now I wander over and start talking to Larry. What do you think I'm talking about? I'm telling him about how screwed up you are, because that's my MO, right? That's how I'm operating.
Yep. This is what I love about you, Louie. You're no BS. You eat your vegetables. You make people eat their vegetables. This is great stuff. But on that point of the walking the floor, so I just had this conversation the other day too, and I think this is a great thing to elaborate on. I met a person who's been very successful in the automotive and seating industry. He's been in operations. He's one of those people who gets moved around to the hot spot or the pain point for the business. And he and I had about a half-hour conversation just about, okay, well, what processes would you recommend to improve an organization? And he's like, Jared, one of the things I do when I go to a new facility is I just walk the floor. 5 times a day, I walk the floor. And, we were talking about Gemba is what the Japanese call it, the Gemba walk, right? They go walk the floor. But I think you added another element to it that is really important to point out. And I'm pretty sure if I went back to that other person and asked them, they would say the same thing, which is constructive feedback, right? Because as a leader, if you're just going out and walking the floor, all you're really doing is you're educating yourself, which is great. That's a great first step. And I applaud people getting out of the office, walking the floor of their operation, understand what's going on. But the second element you cited is that employee engagement piece and constructive discussions or very positive conversations. Find people doing stuff right. Focus on that, because once people realize you're focused on what's going right, that tends to get momentum and builds on itself.
I agree. And it also opens up a thing that's very powerful called communication. Yeah. And as I can tell you, one of the things so I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to follow up with an email to thank you. And then I'm going to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how did I do? And if it wasn't a 10, what could I do to make it a 10? If I was interviewed in the future, right? Because that's how you grow. I've asked my employees, hey, how are we as a company or myself as a leader, how are we doing on a scale of 1 to 10? And here's where you got to check the ego at the door, right? When they say, Louie, you're a 5, I say, okay. I check my ego at the door instead of saying stupid employees. They don't know what they're doing. They don't own a company. They have no idea. I leave all that stuff out of the equation. I ask them, okay, what would it take to make it a 5? And then they tell you some very powerful stuff, and it's often really simple. Mm-hmm. Well, Louie, there's always a shortage of toilet paper in the bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
No, but it's a big deal to them, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And now you're a 10. And the other part of that is that, so when that communication is going both ways, I can tell you, much like my barber who gave me the sign idea after Desert Storm, my greatest improvement, I had a shop meeting. Yep. We were having a problem with production. And I don't remember what it was now, but I got the whole team together, including the 2 office ladies. So currently we're running at 11 people. Mm-hmm. And I've got 2 ladies that run the office, and one of them's now the manager in training. But the ladies in the office had a brilliant idea on how to solve production's problem. Mm-hmm. And they don't work in production, but that's when you open it up and there's that communication and everybody feels like it's safe to say something or to give their input, then you get this kind of growth and problem solving that you'd never have thinking you're living in this vacuum by yourself, wanting to be that guy that doesn't need help or thinks he knows it all.
If you want to recommend somebody to appear on the podcast as a guest, please email us at info@opsqc.com. If you're interested in sponsoring a podcast, please reach out to us at the same email. We'd love to have your support.